Hello. How are you? Hi. Good. Okay. Yikes, okay, I'm a little short for this microphone. All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I'm a member of Congress. I represent Florida's 23rd Congressional District, which includes a little bit of Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, Miami Beach, Weston, and the surrounding suburbs. But I'm here this morning, not only as a Floridian, but as the chair of the Democratic National Committee. Because today, Jeb Bush will officially, as if he hadn't already been essentially running for president, announce that he is running for president. Meanwhile, the rest of the country is still struggling to recover from the last President Bush. After 8 years in office, George W. Bush, we all remember painfully, left us with the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We were losing 750,000 jobs a month. The housing market's bubble had burst, and the automobile industry was on the verge of collapse. Under President Obama, we've experienced 63 straight months, more than 5 full years of private sector job growth. But we're still digging out of that hole. Like most Republicans, Jeb Bush wants to take us back to the same failed trickle-down economic policies that led to the crisis in the first place. Instead of middle-class economics, Jeb Bush's economic policies are aimed toward helping himself and people just like him. As governor, his tax policies favored the rich and wealthy corporations at the expense of the middle class. He stood by his brother's proposal to privatize Social Security as governor of Florida and endorsed the Ryan budget that would end Medicare as we know it and turn it into a voucher system. These are policies that would shred the safety net on which so many Florida seniors rely, including those in my congressional district. Democrats are fighting for an increase in the minimum wage. Jeb Bush said it should be left to the private sector. Democrats are fighting for pay equality. Jeb Bush didn't even know what the Paycheck Fairness Act was when he was asked. The Affordable Care Act has helped 16 million Americans gain access to quality, affordable health care. And now healthcare spending is growing at its slowest rate in 50 years. But Jeb Bush has actually said that the law doesn't work, even though his own state, Florida, had the most people sign up among all the states participating in the federal marketplace. I'm not sure what Jeb's definition of not working is, but it's not mine, nor Floridians across the state who have voted with the choices they've made to sign up for health care and who obviously needed it badly. Since he left the governor's office, Jeb Bush has been involved in several problematic business deals that Americans might want to know about. He created a multi-million-dollar fund that operates like an offshore tax haven. He sat on the board of a company that was found to have defrauded investors out of millions of dollars. And Jeb has managed to leverage his family name to reap profits for himself, cashing in on Wall Street while many Americans were hit by the financial crisis. By this point, it should be no surprise that Jeb Bush doesn't care about the middle class. We know what happens to the middle class in a Bush economy. But those of us in Florida who know him best have an even greater understanding of Bush's contempt for people whose views and priorities don't align with his own. Just look at what we've learned from his book, Profiles in Character. In one disgustingly named chapter entitled The Restoration of Shame. No, you can't make this stuff up. That is the title of a chapter in Jeb Bush's book.
Yes.
It's called The Restoration of Shame. Jeb invoked the Scarlet Letter to justify shaming single mothers for having a child out of wedlock. He's also said that women who make use of government assistance programs should be able to get their life together and find a husband. Now, this is political bullying, and it has no place in our discourse. Shame on these women? No. Shame on Jeb Bush. But that's the mentality that we've seen from Jeb Bush firsthand in Florida over and over again. He thinks he's always right, and everyone who disagrees with him is wrong. It put him at odds with the legislature, the courts, and the voters of Florida over and over again. It has hurt our state and our people. Take education, supposedly one of Jeb Bush's signature issues, supposedly one of his strengths. Jeb Bush has long attacked class size reduction in Florida. When there was a constitutional amendment put forward and a vote that took place in 2002, no one campaigned harder against it than Jeb Bush. That put him at odds with a majority of Florida's voters. And they dealt him a crushing defeat at the ballot box when they adopted that constitutional amendment limiting class sizes in primary and secondary schools in Florida. And again, even though he campaigned against it, when they decided not to repeal the amendment. And it's also proven costly for the state of Florida. One example of his fiscal irresponsibility is the hundreds of millions of dollars in stimulus money that Governor Bush handed over to the Scripps Research Institute. I want to take you down a trip down memory lane. If you remember when Governor Bush was in office, during the last federal stimulus, he put together a $310 million incentive package to lure Scripps to Florida, claiming that that deal would create 50,000 jobs in Florida over 15 years. Opponents of the deal, including me, I was in the state legislature back then, repeatedly sought to include simple accountability measures to ensure that we actually received the jobs that Scripps and Governor Bush promised. But Jeb came personally to the committee, and when we asked him questions and asked would he support at least inserting the ability for Florida to be paid back by Scripps if the money was lost and the jobs weren't created, he adamantly opposed any accountability measures whatsoever. If you hear him talk about being fiscally responsible on the campaign trail, here's an important fact. 12 years and $1.3 billion in state, city, and county funding later, the data shows that just 1,365 jobs were created at a cost of about $1 million each to taxpayers. Jeb Bush only looks out for himself and people like him. He never has and he never will fight for middle-class families. Maybe that's why we used to call him King Jeb here in Florida. No matter what the voters of the legislature or the courts say, at the end of the day, Jeb Bush is going to get things his way, come hell or high water. Even though Americans already know what a Bush presidency would mean for them, Jeb Bush is still planning to run for president in 2016. We're here to tell you, trust the people of Florida who know him best. Jeb Bush's misplaced priorities and abuses of power are wrong for America. They were certainly wrong for Florida. And Americans are about to get a first-class dose of what a Jeb Bush presidency would be like. And now I'd like to introduce my friend Tony Lima, the Executive Director of SAVE. Tony, his colleagues, and their network of advocates have worked hard for years to back and support and protect the LGBT community from discrimination and to fight for their rights. I've been proud to stand by their side. We don't need any of the gains that we've made in recent history to be undone by a third Bush presidency. So it's my pleasure to welcome Tony to the podium. Tony.